What's up, YouTubers? Welcome to my channel. My name's Eric Fisk, and this is not another real estate video. Yeah, another real estate video. What are you complaining about? You clicked it. You clearly want to watch it.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
Okay, sorry guys, I'm not really mad, but you do have to admit there's been a lot of talk about real estate lately. You've probably seen or heard about this on the news, the insane surge in real estate prices. Maybe you've talked about it in your friend group, in your peer group at work. I'm sure it's popped up in a dozen more articles that have come through your email recently too. I'm sure you're wondering what all the fuss is about. And if you're one of the many people trying to get into owning your first home, then you're probably wondering if it's still a good time to do that. So in today's video, we'll get into all of that and we'll talk through and evaluate the current state of the real estate market. So first things first, let's dive into the state of the current real estate market. In 2020, real estate absolutely exploded all across the country. This may sound kind of odd to a lot of people when everything else was coming to a screeching halt due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Restaurants were closing, businesses shutting their doors, people working from home. Real estate, conversely, was absolutely on fire. For many typical office jobs, during the pandemic, remote work became a reality. People were no longer having to go into the office every single day for their job, and so they decided rather than live in the congested downtown close to their work, maybe we should start to move out, venture into the suburbs, get a little more space, get a yard, little Jimmy and Ellen can run around, whatever their kids' names are. And suddenly, people all over the country realized they didn't have to even live in the same city as their job. Now with telecommuting and Zoom conference calls, you could potentially live wherever you want. So this also led to a huge surge of people moving from coast to coast and everything in between. And as a result, housing prices have been soaring. In fact, if we look at some past statistics from recent years, from February 2019 to February 2020, all pre-pandemic, housing values rose about 4% during that year. Now, if we look at February 2020 to February 2021, housing prices have soared almost 15%, 14.9% to be exact. And just in case it's not obvious, 15% is not a typical return for a one-year period in the real estate market. These kinds of gains are really relatively unheard of. There were possibly some times back in the 1970s when we saw these kinds of gains in real estate, but that was also during a time when we had rampant inflation going on in the US. So some of that was offset with the actual value of the dollar going down. But never before have we seen a 15% year-over-year return other than COVID-19, baby. So what has all this done to the actual real estate market? Well, when we look at new home supply, and that is homes that are newly built, the current supply is near an all-time low of about 4.1 months. That means the supply of new homes being built could only satisfy the demand for these new homes for about 4 months. And for existing homes, homes that have already been built, sales have risen over 20% year over year. And although prices are rising, we still see that homeowners are a bit reluctant to sell, for a number of different reasons, one being pandemic uncertainty, maybe they're still not sure about their job security, and also the fact that it's getting more expensive to build a home. Less people are actually willing to sell their current homes than can meet current demand. This has led to an existing supply of just 1.9 months, as measured this past January. So that is to say there's less than 2 months of supply to meet current demand for existing homes. And with inventory so lean, the houses that do go on the market are selling fast. And they're usually selling with multiple offers on the table and over asking price, and sometimes even over the appraisal price. What's happening in this situation is really pretty unique. You have people looking for a home, they're getting caught up in bidding wars with other potential home buyers. They're submitting their best price for the home only to still be outbid. This happens on 2, 3, 4 homes that they see. Finally, it gets to be just such a stressful situation that people are almost willing to pay any price to get this home. That's where you're seeing people paying over appraisal price for homes and having to come to the table with extra cash because the bank won't finance them. It definitely can be a rough situation. The typical time for a house to be on the market right now is about 21 days. This is down from 43 days a year ago. So houses are on the market basically half as long as they were a year ago. Buyers are sometimes making offers sight unseen just to be able to get their foot in the door. And this is all leading to surging prices. So what else is driving this increase in demand? It can't just be remote work, and it's not. Probably the even bigger driving factor here is that home mortgage interest rates are as low as they've ever been. With the Fed slashing rates, people have been able to get home loans for 2.5, 3%. Compare that back 20, 25 years ago when you would have been happy to get a 12 or 13% mortgage rate. It's a pretty good time to be borrowing money. The problem, however, is that because home prices are rising so much and so quickly, it's completely wiping out that additional purchasing power that the low interest rate affords you. Let's look at a quick example to illustrate my point here. So let's go back in time, maybe 3 or 4 years. You're looking to buy a home that costs $300,000. You're going to put 20% down for your down payment, and your interest rate's going to be 4.5%. After we factor in taxes and insurance, that's going to make your monthly mortgage payment about $1,500. Now fast forward to present day, and your interest rate is only 2.5%. So going through those same numbers, that $300,000 home at 2.5% with 20% down, taxes and insurance included, you're only paying about $1,200 for your monthly mortgage payment. So you start to think, shoot, I can afford more than that. I'm looking to spend $1,500 a month. Let's see what kind of house we can get. The fact of the matter is, when you're paying 2% less in interest rate, 4.5 compared to 2.5, you can actually afford a house that's worth $370,000 and still be paying the same monthly rate, about $1,500, as you would have a few years ago for that $300,000 house. But again, home prices are surging way out of the ordinary, so that $300,000 house is no longer a $300,000 house. It's a $370,000 house. So ultimately, you're not really getting any extra bang for your buck just because you have the lower interest rate, since home prices have been going so out of control this past year. Now, all that said, does that mean it's a bad time for you to be buying a home? Not necessarily. Most experts agree that we're not in a housing bubble right now. There's no expected real estate crash coming. So that is to say, you can't just sit on the sidelines for a few minutes, wait for a crash, and then buy a home for half as much. It's probably not going to happen, but there is some expectation that once interest rates start to creep up, whenever that happens, probably some of the demand for real estate will start to die down and supply will be able to catch up a little bit more. But again, we don't know when that's going to happen. For all we know, prices could continue to go up for the next 2-3 years. So really the best thing to do right now, if you're still considering getting a home, is just to consider your budget and try and stick to that. Don't get caught up in the bidding wars and the frenzy over the limited supply. Be conscientious about what you really need in a home and stick to your budget. Buy something you can afford, and with any luck, the prices will continue to go up. Or if you're really just not able to find anything in your budget, you can keep renting. There's nothing wrong with that. The bottom line is, if you're looking for your primary residence, you really need to find a home that works for you and your unique situation. Getting caught up in trying to time the market like this you're just gonna have a bad time, and you don't want to end up in a house that you can't really afford. So what about selling your house? Is it a good time to do that? You may have heard people saying it's a seller's market right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right decision for you to sell your house. So here's a few key factors to look at to determine whether or not it's the right time for you to sell. The first one may seem a little obvious, as we've talked about it at length now, but it's the fact that interest rates are low right now. So not only does this mean that there's more buyers on the market, it also means that it's going to be cheaper for you to go and borrow money for your next home. Another reason that you might consider selling your house right now is if you live in a hot selling market. If you live in an area where a lot of people tend to be moving in, then that means you're going to have more potential buyers, which could potentially drive up the price for your house. But keep in mind, if you're looking to move in the same area, you're also going to be subject to that when you go to buy your next house. You're now going to be the buyer, and there's going to be many other buyers that you're competing with. So it may be more advantageous if you're actually looking to get out of your city into maybe a less hot market. That way you benefit from the hot market on the sale and don't have to deal with quite as many buyers competing on your next house. If you're not sure if you live in a hot real estate market or not, you can find this out pretty easily by just Googling your area plus realtor association, and you can look at trends for how houses are selling and figure out pretty simply there. One other key indicator that might tell you if it's a good time for you to sell or not is if you live in a starter home and are looking to trade up. Now, starter homes can range in price depending on the area, but they're generally considered the bottom third of sales in your area. So why are starter homes so hot right now?
So hot right now. So hot right now. He's so hot right now.
Well, it's because a lot of people who were considering buying a home on that bottom tier of the pricing structure maybe couldn't afford it before, but now with interest rates being so low, their buying power increases, so they are able to afford it. So there are a lot of these people on the market right now, and it's really pushing up prices for that starter home range. Another factor for this is just that inventory for starter homes is notoriously low because a lot of the new builds that are happening more in that middle to upper tier. Homes going for $500,000 and up, those tend to be more common for new builders as they are able to get a better margin on that type of sale. So there's a few key elements to consider if you're looking to sell your home. Now let's talk about some reasons why you might not want to sell your home right now. Reason number one is if you just refinanced your mortgage or if you're in mortgage forbearance. So if you just refinanced, you probably had to pay some level of closing costs to close the deal. So you're probably a year to 2, maybe 3 years before you make that money back, so to speak. If that's the case, then selling your home right now would mean you have kind of wasted money on that refinance. The other piece of this, which is probably the bigger one, is that mortgage forbearance. If you're in mortgage forbearance right now because you can't pay what's owed on your loan due to losing your job or any other hardships, know that if you go and sell your house, any money that you owe and interest that's collected can be taken out of the sale proceeds from selling your house. So it's not to say that you can't sell your house if you're in forbearance, you just want to make extra sure that by the time all of those costs clear, you're still going to have enough money for the down payment on your next home and that it's not going to leave you underwater. The second reason you wouldn't want to sell right now is if your income is unstable or you're unsure about the security of your job. The reason for that is just that there's a lot of money that goes into buying a house. There's the down payment, there's closing costs, there's insurance, all of that adds up. And if you're not sure how much income you're going to have in the future, if you could potentially lose your job, you could find yourself in a really bad spot trying to close on a mortgage with no income coming in. A third reason why you may not want to sell right now is if you haven't built up very much equity in your current home. So maybe you bought your current home on a very low down payment, something like a 3% or possibly even less. That means that you don't have a lot of equity in the home. You don't own a lot of that principal. So if you haven't had the time to build a little bit of a nest egg, so to speak, in your home's equity, when you go to sell, after you're paying all the realtor commissions and expenses there, you may not be left with any money that doesn't go to the bank. So how are you going to buy your next home? You may just be putting yourself into this spiral where you're not able to put any down payment on for the next loan either, and there's really not even a guarantee that you're going to be able to find another home that's going to fit those qualifications. So just another thing to consider. And the final reason why you may not want to sell your home right now is if you've lived in your home for less than 2 years. And that's because 2 years is the absolute minimum that you have to have lived in your home in order to not have to pay capital gains tax on the sale of that home. So this is something that a lot of people don't think about, but if you've lived in your home more than 2 years, you have up to $250,000 of gains from the sale that are tax-free, essentially. You don't have to pay capital gains tax on it. However, if you live there less than 2 years, you do have to pay capital gains tax, and it's even worse if you live there less than 1 year, because then the capital gains tax that you're paying is taxed at your regular income rate instead of the standard 15% capital gains tax. So this one could really eat into your profits if you're not careful. So all that said, if you're still looking to sell your home, traditionally the best time to do that is in spring, summer time frame. This is when inventory tends to go up and you also have a lot more buyers willing to go out and look at homes on the weekends when the weather's a little bit nicer. So we're getting right into that key home selling time frame right now. Another option you may want to consider if you don't want to deal with having people come into your home and walking through with a pandemic going on is you could consider selling your home to Zillow. Now Zillow, for those who aren't aware, is an online realty site where you can look at homes for sale. And they recently released a service in which they'll buy your home from you. All you have to do is submit some basic information about your home, any upgrades that have been made, that sort of thing, and they'll send you a real-time price quote. I did go through the process myself, just out of curiosity to see what they would offer me for my home. I wanted to see if it was something they're trying to sandbag you or if they actually give you a decent price for it. But I haven't gotten that offer back yet, so maybe I'll cover that in my next video if they give that back to me in time. But I'm really curious to see. It could be a really hassle-free way to sell your home, kind of like Carvana in the car selling business. But I don't know, we'll see. We'll see in the next one, maybe. That's all I got for you guys today. Thanks so much for stopping by. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe down below. We'll see you guys in the next one.